really glad to be here today with you all. The presentation that we're going through today, Erica sent out a PDF, so if you're on the phone, feel free to follow along there. My goal is that we can equip you to, again, know about CGMA, be a good advocate for Coast Guard Mutual Assistance, be able to answer questions that folks may have in your unit. As we're going through this, if there are questions that you have, things that aren't clear, please let us know. We want to make sure that this is helpful to you. So let's kick this off. Sorry, bear with me. Technology is still not my friend. Right.
I have it up and can share it if you need.
I got it. Sorry, friends. All right. So our mission at Coast Guard Mutual Assistance is to enable the financial resiliency of the Coast Guard community. What does that mean? Our goal is to make sure that those short-term financial pitfalls or speed bumps don't become long-term challenges or much larger issues. So the way that we do that and the way we talk about it is 3 specific program areas: disaster and emergency relief, day-to-day support, and education assistance. And of course, we'll talk about all 3 of those areas in more depth. But again, just knowing that our goal is to help every member of the Coast Guard community be financially sound and strong for the future. So what is CGMA and what don't we do? These are some common misconceptions and questions that we get about our organization. So first and foremost, CGMA is a grant and interest-free loan program. So later on, as we talk about specific programs, anytime we mention a loan, know that it is interest-free. None of our loans have any interest that accrues. And many of our programs are actually grants. Again, we're a resource to help you manage finances. Again, making sure that those short-term financial pitfalls don't become much larger issues. We are a 501c3 organization, so a nonprofit. We're not, even though we work really closely with the Coast Guard, we are separate. So we are a nonprofit organization, not a government entity. And even though donations is why we're all here today, we're here to talk about the fundraising campaign, it is really critical to know that you do not have to donate in order to receive assistance from CGMA. So we hope that people do want to support this amazing work. We want to provide them the opportunity to do so, but that is not a requirement in order to receive assistance from CGMA. So with all of that, we don't do credit checks. It doesn't affect your security clearance or credit score, and there's no limit to the number of times that you can come to us for help. We saw this particularly in like the government shutdown. People were like, ooh, I don't want to go to CGMA now because I might need more help later on. So just know that that's not true. We know that life is unpredictable. Situations are unique and personal. And so we're here to help through all kinds of different things. Again, we'll talk about some specific programs that CGMA has established, but it's impossible to have a program for every situation. So if you're wondering what CGMA can help with and what we cannot, this is kind of the short answer, right? So if it requires immediate attention, if it's essential, so food, clothing, shelter, transportation, getting that to work, and a temporary problem, if it fits into that category and it's not an official CGMA program, that's still probably something we can help with. We're not going to help with non-essentials, buying that new fancy car, or a second vacation home, living beyond one's means. Those are not the things that would fall under CGMA, but certainly if it's an emergent need, CGMA is here to help. So if you get nothing else out of this call, please hear me on that if there's ever a need with any of your shipmates, anyone in your unit, we do want you to come to us. We'd love to get to yes, and we would like to help however we can, even if it's not a specific program that we talk about. So CGMA is part of a coalition of relief. So every branch of the services has an organization like CGMA. CGMA is unique in that we rely on our local representatives to actually process cases. So you, in your role as a campaign coordinator, you will not actually be handling CGMA cases. You'll refer them to your representative. So know that that's kind of how the structure is, but you are very much a part of our organization as well. The other thing that I'll throw out here is that CGMA functions with a staff of only 12. So if you call CGMA headquarters, you're going to get someone, you have a third of the team on the call with you today. So know that those representatives are really part of our team as well, but we only have 12 full-time staff members. All right, so let's start talking about some specific programs. So remember I mentioned that we have 3 primary buckets. Disaster emergency relief is probably what people know us most for. And the reason we know that is we've been really busy the last couple of years with disaster and emergency assistance. In fact, 1 in 3 active duty members have received CGMA assistance of some kind in the last 3 years. And a lot of that has to do with recent events, right? So the government shutdown, 8.5 million in 35 days. The COVID pandemic, we provided 3.5 million in grants and a total of 4.4 million. The last couple years of hurricanes has been 5.4 million. And again, you can see most of that has been in grants. And of course, there's other more isolated disaster events too, everything from a personal home repair that was an emergency assistance. And in your campaign resources, we have a testimonial of a dual military couple that had a pretty major home repair that they leaned on CGMA for. The Texas winter storm, Puerto Rico power outages, the D9 water crisis, or D14, sorry, water crisis. There's lots of things that we can do to help. But again, it can be those widespread things or kind of those short-term personal emergencies too, like a fire or something like that. CGMA is here to help. So some of the things that fall into this category: basic living expenses, emergency car and home repairs, emergency travel. Many people have stories of needing to get back home because a loved one was ill or maybe a death in the family. We can help provide that travel. Obviously evacuations in an event of a hurricane or something like that. Funeral expenses. Lots of funds. So this is one that a lot of people don't know us about. We had a case a couple years ago where the member's mother actually cleared out their bank account, and we were able to help with that whole process of getting back on their feet after that a bad roommate or something like that. We can help through that short-term pitfall. Medical and dental costs not covered by TRICARE, and the temporary living expenses. I do also want to point out the Safe Harbor program. This is a brand new program that just launched last fall that supports members of domestic violence. So helping between that emergency shelter and when government compensation comes into effect, we help in that short-term program, making sure that those survivors are able to start over and back on their feet securely and safely. Any questions about disaster and emergency relief programs before we move on to day-to-day support?
Elena, we did get one question from Petty Officer Cody Vitale, and he asked, is the 19.8 million the total assistance given to date?
So to date in all of CGMA's history is actually 230 million since our founding in 1924. So yeah, we've been busy over our 100 years, almost 100 years. We'll celebrate our 100th next year. Great question. Any other questions? Keep them coming as we go, because if you're asking it, I guarantee that 2 other people on this call are asking it as well. So day-to-day support is probably what people know us least for. And part of that is that it's all just very unique. We've worked really hard over the last couple of years, particularly to come up with programs that really help members with the gap in assistance. So between, what you are responsible for, what the government provides, those entitlements, oftentimes there is a gap. And so our programs are designed to help fill that and make sure that people are supported to the very best of our ability. So we've done a lot of work in housing over the last year or so. You probably heard that. So our rental assistance and closing cost loan, we increased that from $6,000 to $9,000. That can help with securing safe housing when you PCS. And we have a lot of different PCS support programs available. For transportation, one of our newer programs is the Oconus Rental Car Loan. That's a program specifically designed to provide a rental car on either side of that Oconus move, that PCS. We know that a lot of times it takes your personal vehicle a lot of weeks, a lot of days to get there, and you still need to get to work. You still need to get your family to school and get to the grocery store. And so making sure that there's reliable transportation for you while you're waiting for your vehicle to arrive. And then, as we've talked about, vehicle repairs, and also if you need assistance shipping a personal vehicle, we can help with that as well. And that's typically a loan.
Elena, can I pause you and ask, we got a question, what does DLA stand for?
Oh, great question. So let's go back to that. So DLA is dislocation allowance. And so this program is specifically for, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong with that acronym, but the program is that, you know, outside of a normal PCS, there are times when people have to move out of their housing for no fault of their own. So maybe it was they found mold in government housing, or there was a fire, or it's just not safe. We've had some cases where, unfortunately, it was like a hate crime, right? And the member wasn't safe in their housing and they had to move in between. So some of those normal entitlements that you get in a PCS move to help with those, you don't get if you're moving during a PCS or during your after your PCS. So this program is a $1,000 grant to help with that transition. So again, if you have to move outside of a normal PCS cycle at no fault of your own, we can help with that. Great question. So moving on to family support programs, this is kind of another sub-bracket. PCS childcare grants. We don't want anybody packing up their littles in boxes with the movers. Childcare loans, this is to help establish childcare. Again, not the long-term solution, but again, to help establish. So if you need to use it to put yourself on a waiting list, or there's a deposit, we can help with that. The Special Needs Grant Program provides $3,000 every 5 years for members enrolled in the Coast Guard Special Needs Program. And we'll share a case story about a really fun family that we did help with this program in a minute. The breast milk shipment reimbursement, that's a grant that's available for members and spouses. So if the spouse travels for work, they can use this program, or during a PCS move, that's also available to spouses. Pet and quarantine expenses, pretty self-explanatory. We have a suite of family building programs, so adoption grants and loans. An assisted reproductive services loan is $6,000 for any fertility treatment not covered by TRICARE. So that can be IVF, IUI, surrogacy. It's very broad. $6,000 interest-free loan to help with those medical expenses. Baby supplies, if you've had a little one recently, you've probably received a CGMA layette. It's a cute little package with onesies and bibs and kind of all the necessities that you need for those first couple months. And then, as we talked about, there's, again, funeral expenses. If you have to leave lay someone to rest, we can help with that. And elder care loans, that is specifically, again, to establish care, or to if you need to like do renovations to your home in order to care for a family member, you know, adding a handrail or a ramp or something like that, that program can assist with those kind of renovations. Any questions on any of these family support programs?
We do have a couple questions from the chat. Okay. The first is, are these grants and loans available to reservists not on active duty members? Which was quickly followed up by, is this the program only the military or Coast Guard civilian employees are eligible?
Great question. So generally all CGMA programs are available to every member of the Coast Guard community. So retirees, active duty, reservists, auxiliary members, and civilian employees. Now, of course, some, like a civilian employee or reservist, like you're not PCSing, so some of those programs don't apply. But by far and large, everything else absolutely is available to all clients. And your CGMA rep can help with determining exact eligibility if you have a question about a program. And our website also has all of that information available.
And now we have a question about our awesome layette package. Question, it comes from Petty Officer Gaia, and the question is, do you have to sign up for the baby supplies? How does CGMA know?
Great question. Yep, it's a simple application, so that can either be filled out by the member or by the command. But you just let us know, and that form is on the website. Send it to us, and then we send the layette to the member directly. Yeah, I wish we were like telepathic and could just know when every single Coastie kid is born, but we do have to be told. Any other questions from the chat, Erica?
No more questions, but thank you all for putting those in. This is really helping get good information out.
Awesome. Well, as I mentioned, wanted to share a case with you. So this is the Trout family. Their 3 boys are all special needs, and 2 of the twins do require 24-hour care. So for them, their challenge was that care was covered at their current duty station in Houston. They would be covered in Clearwater when they arrived, but that whole moving process, that PCS, the time it took to move, that medical care wasn't covered by TRICARE. So CGMA was able to provide for the medical care during that transition, and then also some of the equipment that they needed to help this family be successful with their move. So I love that story because it highlights again kind of how all of our PCS support programs work together, the special needs program. That's often the case with CGMA, is that yes, we have kind of these individual programs, but they all work in tandem with one another to make sure that we are being as helpful and filling the most of the need as we possibly can. All right, I'm actually going to kick this over to Erica, who is also our education assistance expert, to share a little bit more about our education programs.
Great, thanks. As Elena mentioned, we're a small organization, so we get to wear multiple hats. And I love that I get to help with programs as well as raise money. So here we go, education programs. You probably are familiar with our supplemental education grant. It is our hands down most popular program, and it just got more popular because in January we announced a doubling, and hopefully you're well aware of this because a lot of good information went out through All-Coast and through local commands. But the supplemental education grant for post-secondary education expenses for books and fees increased from $500 to $1,000, and it now includes computers, laptops, and tablets that are needed for the course of study. But we don't stop there with empowering you towards your education goals. We also have an interest-free education loan. We do reimburse the fee for Stafford and Plus loan fees, as well as tutoring for members. And this is our one program that is that also reaches into our grade school children. So you can get help from reading all the way up into college courses. There's over 80 subjects, and many of them are available in Spanish. There's also a writing center for support, resume assistance, as well as SAT, ACT prep resources. So it's really a great resource that CGMA makes available. We foot the bill for it, and you can take advantage of those tutoring sessions. Now we have 2 newer programs that came out in the last couple of years that are really geared towards family members' education needs that come around based on PCS transitions. So once you go to a new area, we know that specifically our special needs family members can often be set back because they have to get into the queue to get their IEP set up. So we do an education advocate grant, which helps that process to speed it along. And then secondly, we have the spouse professional requirements loan. And this is particularly for our awesome spouses. We know my dad said it at his own retirement, the Coast Guard spouse is often the amazing engine that helps the family work while the member either is TDY, deployed, or transitioning. But oftentimes spouses' personal careers are impacted because of the active duty member transientness of moving around. So we want to help Coast Guard spouses have their great career go forward. And so often when you transition from state to state, there are different requirements and certification required to register in a specific state. So if there is a cost associated with that, that is where our spouse professional requirements loan comes into play. And we just want to, we have a number of things that help spouses. Spouses can access all sorts of number of our programs, particularly education, just by being independent. They can receive a SEG grant, they can receive the education loan through the member. So that is all sorts of education things, but it doesn't end with just getting your degree. We consider education also, excuse me, the financial readiness of the Coast Guard. So financial counseling is another piece that we offer. And that is because credit mounts. It gets worse if it doesn't get addressed. And so we want to support you and the members that you're going to be talking to with getting their financial house in order so that they can be mission focused and available to their families without stress. And so we want to equip the Coast Guard in that capacity. And I have seen a bunch of chat come up and I have not seen one of them. So I'm going to turn it over to Elena. Were there any questions about our education programs?
Pause a minute and collect any questions.
Actually, I can answer one of those.
Oh, great.
Great.
This is, let me introduce, this is Jing, who I mentioned at the beginning of the call. She is actually our operations manager. She's an amazing resource, and she is coming over from the rep side. She coaches our reps, and so she's going to tackle some of the questions that came in through the chat. Thanks, Jing.
Yep. Hi, everybody. I'm Jing Patton. So for the question on the education loan, I know that on the manual it says you can take out 2 loans for $3,000 and one, pay one off and then you can get another one. That was our old system, but we are pushing to get $6,000 loan and one loan instead of do 2 at a time. So that just diffuse the confusion a little bit. But it's not in the manual yet, and we're currently updating the manual. So so that will come up pretty soon. And that is, now you can do one loan, $6,000 for education loan. What was the other question? Question on grants for the homeschooling. Do you want to cover that, Erica? The grants for the homeschooling costs?
Where, oh, I didn't, can you read the question to me? Sorry.
Oh, also had on grants to assist with homeschooling costs.
Go ahead, Elena.
Yeah, so during COVID-19 pandemic, we did have a special program that we called it the Supplemental Education, like the SEG-C, right? SEG for COVID. And that was for elementary students, high school students, the cost of schooling children at home. Now that was only for the pandemic. So now that we're back to our normal times, normal operations, that has gone away. So the only program that is available for elementary and high school students is the online tutoring. So the tutor.com. All other programs are for post-secondary education.
Great. And then Jing, do you want to take the question, does the spouse professional requirements loan apply to the fee to get certifications that sometimes cost up to $2,000 to take a test?
It's so for the spouse professional requirements loan, you have to be certified already. And when when the member PCSing, we will require a PCS order with that application. So when the spouses move to another state, for example, with the nursing program, that when you move to another state and you want to practice there, you need to renew your license or get your license from the other state. And that is this loan for. You had to already certify.
Yeah, and there's been recent legislation that's been passed that means that most professional requirements are actually covered. So each state has to recognize that nursing grant for another state for military spouses. The exception is for law certification, so like that bar. So this is really more of like a lawyer kind of situation, but there is a lot of government assistance available around this area now. So CGMA programs are always changing and adjusting to, kind of what's available from other sources. So to answer that question about initial certification, currently no, but that is something that we're looking at to revise in light of this new legislation. So hopefully next year we can report that that's something that's changed.
And then we
Thanks.
do have a question about SEG, and I'll take this one. For the SEG, does the dependent application count towards the $1,000 total per year for the member? And actually, yes, that it does. So the SEG is $1,000 on behalf of the students that are in the family. So there might be one student or there could be three, but it's per member. So the only case that would be different is when you have a dual member family. So you've got two Coastie members married to each other. All right, and thank you so much for all the great questions. Our education programs are amazing, and we do know that education is expensive, and that's why we leverage a lot of money towards our education programs. We've already put out over $1 million in our supplemental education grant already this year. So thanks so much. That wraps up my little portion on the education program.
Awesome. So I did mention this is another story of an E6 and an E7 in the New London area that had a major house repair. Basically, the foundation was leaking. So CGMA was able to help support them. This full story directly from them will be available in your campaign resources. When you are giving this presentation to your unit, though, I would highly encourage that at this point, if you have a personal testimony that you can share, maybe CGMA has helped you, maybe there's someone else at the unit that wants to speak about CGMA, this is the opportunity to do that, because that story is going to be 100% more powerful than anything we could provide. However, we know that not everybody is going to have access to that, and so we do have some testimonials available for you to use as well. Okay, so the moment we've all been waiting for, let's talk about donations. How is CGMA funded? CGMA is funded by individual contributions. So the clients that we serve are also the majority of our donors. We do, however, also have return on investments. So you've probably seen a stat that CGMA for every dollar donated, CGMA was able to provide $1.88 in assistance last year. That's because of this investment strategy. As we loan out support, those loans are repaid back, and we're able to help more people again. And then corporate gifts as well. But really, when you look at this chart, you can see what's concerning to us is that over the last 10 years, the number of people supporting CGMA through the campaign has continued to fall, even though we continue to provide more assistance each year. So really our goal for our campaign is to help educate people about the programs available through CGMA and provide the opportunity to be a part of this amazing work. I love my job because I get to see how CGMA helps each and every day. We do amazing things in our community, and it's a privilege to be a part of that. And so when we're talking about donations, that's all you're doing. It's just offering the opportunity to be a part of this really incredible work. I will say that because CGMA is a nonprofit organization and not a government program, we do not receive any federal or state funding. So we are 100% donor supported. And with that, I will kick it back over to Erica to share a little bit more specifically about the campaign coming up.
Great. I'm going to take over sharing the screen, and just give me a moment there. Oops. I think there we go. Okie dokie. So, Campaign 101, thanks so much for hearing all the good things that we do. And now it's your chance to invite others to participate and And we're going to take the month of April to do that. So I will be your main point of contact. And just wanted to reiterate that who's on this call, you may have some CGMA reps, but you are actually considered our campaign coordinators. So if you get questions about campaign, about CGMA programs, you don't have to know all the answers. You should get in touch with your local CGMA rep. And there's actually 165 of them around, all around the Coast Guard rep sites, and with over 600 reps and assistance reps. So find out one of your local ones so that you can point folks to them when they have questions. Now, at larger units, you might want to recruit key workers, and that's going to be people who support you and can help with outreach, especially at some of the units that have civilian employees. Go ahead and get a key worker that's a civilian that can help bridge that gap and talk to civilians. As Elena mentioned before, and I want to reiterate, CGMA serves the entire Coast Guard community. So that is our active duty members, our civilians, our retirees, reservists, as well as auxiliary members, and then even our chaplains and public health officers that work with the Coast Guard. And that includes our NEF employees. So that's the people that work at exchanges and child care centers. So everybody in the Coast Guard family can access CGMA assistance, and they also should have the opportunity to donate. So you can help us get that contact with them to make sure that they have the chance to decide for them if giving is for them this year. So first things first, kickoff begins April 3rd. So it's the month of April, but where the days fall this year, our campaign runs from April 3rd, which is a Monday, through Friday, April 28th. And you're going to want to have a kickoff to have an event of some sort, maybe at an all hands. Weigh-ins are starting. This is a photo from Alameda where they had a breakfast check-in for a weigh-in that happened, and they had some granola bars and waters and shared information to each person as the weigh-in happened. But if you can come up with some way to kick off the event to let your unit know that campaign has started, and you will be coming around and asking them how they would like to participate this year. Something else that you might consider doing throughout the month of April is holding a fundraiser. And there are so many great ideas, from big to small, of ways to engage, increase morale, and have some fun along the way. A lot of people host breakfasts. We had some folks down in the South who did breakfast burritos with chorizo, and boy, oh boy, did that sound good. So there are a host of different ways, and we're going to have a fundraising guide for you all, and that fundraising guide will offer just a host of different ideas, but you know your unit best, what the personality is, what the needs are, what your local culture is, and what might be a good fundraiser. And then at the end of the month, take time to celebrate. Count up what the full impact of your fundraising is and how much assistance you're going to make sure happens. Remember, times at times 1.88, because that's all that is going to end up in the field. It's almost double what you raise is going to end up in the field, giving assistance to your shipmates. All right. I wanted to make sure that you knew what our website looked like. Our website is cgmahq.org. And then up here at the top with the blue bar is locations. That's where you're going to want to go to find your local rep. So if you click on that, if you don't know who your rep is, it's easy to find out. You just click on that, and it'll bring up a page you can search your zip code and find out who's close to you. All right, campaign resources. Want to make sure you know what's coming your way and what's available to you. Brochures, pledge forms, and posters are en route to you. We did have a shipping delay because there was a quality issue with some paper, but it is headed your way, and it should arrive by the 31st of March. But don't worry, you don't have to wait till March to get started on your planning. All of our content is going to be available by the end of this week on our website at cgmahq.org/campaign. So already there, the campaign instructions are, but we're populating it as fast as we can this week with all of the great content that we've prepared for you. As Elena already said, I want to cover a few tips of success, but personal stories really make a difference. So if you have a local member who has had assistance, or you yourself, you can leverage that at the all hands meeting or your kickoff, where you get to share that good information. But do keep in mind that CGMA leadership speakers are also available. Let us know early if you have an opportunity for us, and we'll do our best to see if we can support you. We are Elena's in the middle of the country. Our CEO is close to the West Coast, and we have a number of us on the East Coast. So there are possibilities for us to be able to be there in person, or maybe virtually join you. And then one of the ways, the main way, it's one of the ways you can give, but it is the main way that we receive donations through the campaign, is actually through allotments for active duty members and payroll deduction for civilian members. And one of the things that happens is you start it and it keeps going year after year. And that's really important because it gives an annual infusion of funds that we can rely on to be able to grow those new programs and expand what we do for the Coast Guard. But one of the things that happens is people set up an allotment earlier in their career and then they forget about it. If people say, "Oh, I already give," thank them. You're our face at the campaign to liaise with our donors. And so thank them for their gift, but ask them if they would consider an increase of even just $1. It would make a difference. So if someone has just $1 allotment, maybe they'd be willing to go to 3 or 5. But that can make a real big difference in the impact of the campaign. A few other things to keep in mind is just practically for your posters, hang them up, use them, put them up in bathroom stalls, maybe break rooms, high traffic areas. And then when Elena said that our goal is 100% contact, we mean don't just be passive about the campaign. Don't just put the campaign brochures and pledge forms in a stack. Consider handing them out, having a key worker hand it out at the beginning of the all hands meeting. Set it up on all the chairs, or maybe you get really creative. Like I think we had a group in Seattle do this a year or so ago. They put the brochure and pledge form on the cars of where people were parked, just to make sure everybody got it and took the opportunity to see what CGMA is all about. One of the things we would say is that I'm going to go back one more previous. All right. One of the things we would say is that CGMA is available for you whenever you need it most. And CGMA is going to be ready to respond because of the donations we receive. So thank you for your part in sharing the good word about CGMA and offering the opportunity for members to give. We're going to have a few other digital resources that I wanted to tell you about, and then we'll turn it over for questions. Again, I mentioned that cgmahq.org/campaign is where all these resources are going to live, but we're also going to have a dashboard set up there where you can track how donations are coming in over the month. Many people are going to use their pledge form and process it online. They're maybe not going to hand you a physical pledge form to submit their donation unless they're maybe using cash or a check. And we want to be able to tell you along the way how many donations are coming in. And one of the things you're going to want to remind your members of is that if they do make their donation or change their allotment online, they want to make sure they include their unit so we can track the impact that you're having by fundraising at your local area. And so we're going to be monitoring our email and phones. And so if you have questions, do let us know and come back. I'm going to pause now. If you have any questions about kickoff events or fundraising opportunities, and I will happily answer those.
One thing I would add and share with you all is in terms of goals, what you can and can't do, right? So giving is 100% voluntary. We can't make anyone give. You cannot make anyone give. And you can't set like individual goals. So you can't say like, we want everyone to give $5. Every gift has to be voluntary. What you can do is have, a unit participation goal. So say our goal would be for 100% unit participation. That's okay. You can do group goals, but you can't do personal individual goals, if that makes sense. And if you have any questions about kind of what is okay, what's legal, what's not, what's ethical, feel free to reach out to either Erica or myself. We're here to help with all of that. There is on our campaign website the legal guidance from Coast Guard Legal about how you can fundraise for CGMA in your official capacity. So that is 100% allowed. You're allowed to use your title, position, rank. You can talk in uniform to one another internal to fundraise for CGMA. That is 100% okay. If you go out into the community, however, that's as an individual volunteer. So in that case, like if you're going to a local restaurant or something, they're helping you with a car wash or something, that you can't do in your official capacity, but you can absolutely do as a private CGMA volunteer. So hopefully that distinction makes sense as well. So we have a question, just to confirm, you said the local CGMA reps can assist with total contributions during the campaign. So that report is actually going to be available to you. It'll be on our website. We're finalizing it right now. And it's a cool dashboard where you can see, donations by district and your unit, as well as assistance provided. So that'll be a dashboard that's available to you that will be updated as the campaign goes.
And I would add that there already is a report there that shows you what happened last year. So if you want to compare year over year, you can find out how much was donated. We have a unit report of what was donated last year and the assistance numbers that have already happened. So that's a solid PDF, not a dynamic report that is already available.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like we have another question. Legal or ethical? I'm an active duty member at a reserve unit. Will it be okay if we set up a cash deposit box to donate to CGMA? Is that okay? Sure, absolutely. I would say what I said in the call yesterday, that we abide by the ethics of the Coast Guard. So we depend on your integrity as you balance your choices for where to safeguard cash and personal and identifiable information that's on donor forms. So please be mindful of that. Thank you for thinking about it. And I would say if you have a cash box, it probably should be locked. But sure, absolutely. You could certainly do that if you want to raise funds for a group gift. We do track individual gifts. So how many people, it is important to us to know how many active duty members are donating, because we want to be able to brag on you guys, the amazing thing, how many Coast Guard members support their fellow Coast Guard members. That makes a difference when we go out and talk to corporate level donors and asking them. It looks really good with the other aid societies, so I expect the Coast Guard to do another amazing job this year supporting their fellow shipmates. And then the second piece is that you can donate from the full unit, and that would be the funds that come from your fundraising event gets attributed to the whole unit. All right, we have great questions coming in fast and heavy. The next one is, if you sell or collect cash, how would that be deposited or transferred to CGMA? Yeah, great question. This is going to be all covered in our campaign instructions, which I sent today, and you can refer back to. But basically, there's a couple of options to do so. The first is you can do a money order. You do not want to send cash in the mail at all. That is not safe to do. So we want you to convert it to a check or money order. And if there's a cost with the money order, you just deduct it from the cash and include the receipt when you send it in. And then you can convert it and send it via Zelle if you want to CGMA. That works as well. Roselle has a question. What are some other ways reservists contribute? I know that they cannot utilize the allotment system. Could I get up and do a dance? This is such a great question, because our reservists are one of our special focus are a special focus this year. So reserve members do such amazing work for Team Coast Guard. They are eligible for assistance, and they are a donor pool that hasn't actually been mobilized as much as we would like, because one of the things is they do not have access to the allotment system. So cash, credit card, love notes in the mail, any of these can be the ways that reservists can contribute. And I'll actually say that we have an amazing reservist who's been featured a couple of times, and he, sneak peek, he's an awardee at our annual meeting this year. He has been fundraising for us as an ultra marathoner, and he's been getting the good word of CGMA out. It's Nate Dervin, if you know him, anybody on the call, but he's been doing great work since he left boot camp. He's been doing it since day one. So there are great reservists who are making good things happen in the donation realm. But thanks for that question.
I would also add for reservists who set up you can do a recurring credit card donation or like an e-check, so directly from your bank account. If you want to give bi-weekly or monthly or whatever that recurring gift is, it doesn't have to be one time. That's available in the platform. Yep.
The next question is, if an allotment was set up years ago, is it still active? How can we change or update the allotment? During the campaign, you absolutely can use your pledge form, and the pledge form directs you to a QR code, and you can either submit it on the hard copy form, or you can do it right away. Take the QR code and it will direct you to our website, to a specific online form where you can make a change. Now, if you have a question, you can certainly send an email at any time during the year to donations@cgmahq.org. So during the campaign, we're updating and changing lots of allotment amounts. But if you have a question on it, it will be on your LES. It is there as an allotment, so you can double check it yourself, or if you need help with that system, you can come in that way.
Yeah, and so allotments don't stop until you tell us to stop. So if you've set up your $5 allotment, that has been going unless you've requested a change. The one exception to that is for recent retirees. So if you had an active duty allotment, when you retire, that active duty allotment stops and doesn't start unless you start a retiree allotment. So we have lots of folks that, retired and now they're civilian employees. They may think that they still have their active duty allotment going because their allotment going because they never stopped it. But if you've retired, then your allotment, that's the only time that it stops automatically, if that makes sense.
Yep. Well, we are so glad that you joined us today. I'm sure there are other questions, but I want to give you all back a little bit of time. If the folks that had the 10-person unit will email me your address, I will send you a swag bag. So again, my email is erica.chapman@cgmahq.org, but the easier one to remember is anytime during the campaign, use the email address campaign@cgmahq.org. Thanks so much for joining us today. Know that we are available by email or phone, and we'll hang on the line if you have any further questions.
Thanks for the training.
You're welcome. Thanks for joining us today.
Erica, you could probably go ahead and stop the recording too.
Okay. Yeah, thanks. Good reminder.